Okay. So we are now jumping into the difference. Well, we're going to continue with what we were talking about with the amends. Great questions, everybody. So far, outstanding questions. Great shares, everything like that. Let's keep that same energy. Is there any questions anybody came up with or comments during the break or anything like that? Did that explanation I gave earlier, Oliver, make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. If it didn't, if you just sit back and listen between the rest of class today and class next week, you should build a better understanding of it. So.
You tell me to sit down and shut up pretty much the rest of class?
No, dude, no, please do not, dude. Dude, I thrive on people sharing. Like if I am talking and doing my lecture and then I ask a question and it's fucking dead air, dude. Oh man, I just keep on talking and I don't really I could go off about shit that makes no sense and is totally pointless. So your questions allow me to kind of like gives more specific answers that are probably more helpful than me just jazzing about broad ideas, you know.
Did you have some things that you was like afraid to do? Like it's just like you just didn't want to do it or couldn't feel like you couldn't do
it? Honestly, those amends were mostly the ones that I had to make towards myself. Like quitting smoking cigarettes was an amends I never thought I would be able to do, nor did I ever think I would want to do. You know, exercising, trying to like focus on my health, you know, those were probably the most difficult ones that I had to make. As far as like other people and fears about that, no, I honestly went into every single amends not afraid, ready, confident, and it was afterwards that would fuck with me. You know what I mean? It was their reaction that would fuck with me the most. I would never expect someone to. I was just so confident. And I still feel that way when I go into amends. I feel so confident. And sometimes that's just not how I feel at the end, you know? And so, yeah, I don't really have too many fears when it comes to making amends. Because I'm pretty confident in the changes that I've made and stuff like that. I know who I am today, pretty well aware of who I was and how stupid it was. And when somebody brings up something I've done in the past, even if I don't remember it, I'm still willing to make that amend. Like I want to make it better. So.
I have a question. I've heard a lot of people making amends just someone that's passed away. Like writing a letter. Is that what you would say?
So I actually have a lot of experience with that, especially now that my sister's recently passed away. The way that I've been making amends to her is by like doing things that she would want to do. I often am this is just an example. Okay. Like, and we're going to get into how to make amends to people who have passed away as well. There's a part of here that we're going to talk about that, but I always try to do something that reminds me of them or do something that like they enjoy doing or something like that. So I'm a very rigid person. And my sister was always the person that I would go like out to eat with. And we would eat unhealthy and we would eat candy bars and, you know, fast food. And we'd get cheesecake. And, you know, nowadays what I've been doing is kind of like allowing myself to do those things. And like thinking of her when I do those things. Other ways that I make amends to my sister is by like, sharing her story, being open about her and honest and shit like that. So you could write letters. That's a great way. You could do donations to a charity that they would want, I'll write on my sister's wall on Facebook instead of writing a letter. I think I would rather like write a Facebook thing. So it's again, it's only limited by our imagination and level of willingness. And the more you talk to people in recovery who have gone through these things, the more things you're going to get, the more examples and ideas you're going to get, so.
Really liked the person who said like doing something that they enjoy doing or we used to do together.
Yeah, like, dude, whenever I'm sorry, go ahead. Whenever I eat, like the other night I made cheesesteaks because my sister fucking loved, like one day we went out it was her birthday and I took her out to eat and we went and got cheesesteaks at this place in Atlanta and we sat on the stairs of some fucking building and ate cheesesteaks together. So whenever I eat cheesesteaks now, it's like it's like in her name. Like this is a Robin thing I'm doing right now. Like cheesesteaks are forever changed. You know what I'm saying? So she also used to call my daughter Squish. So we call my daughter Squish, and she used to call my other daughter Auntie. So we call her Auntie, and we like maintain those things, I'm making a documentary right now about fentanyl, and I'm dedicating the documentary to my sister, and I'm putting a tribute for her in it. So dude, there are just so many, like anything you do in their name, like this is for them, like that. That hits my spirit. You know what I mean? So excellent. And again, we're going to get to those questions. So let's see where we are. And any other questions before I start? These are great questions. Okay. Okay. All right. Each day we make an effort to refrain from hurting our families, even such relatively like past due. Why does making an amends mean I have to do more than say I'm sorry? I think we might have talked about this a little bit, but why do I have to do more than just say, hey, I'm sorry? My bad.
I think I said that to my husband. It was pretty much just that. And he was like, that means nothing to me. How many times have you said you're sorry? Like, you have to like match it up with like the changes that you're making.
I think I know that you're sorry.
It's like not, yeah.
There's no way that it's for me. But I have to do things that I can't help it. I've used that a lot too.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I'm saying I'm sorry doesn't stop the behavior.
right.
Stopping the behavior is like the number one thing that we have to do to be able to like, make an appropriate amends. Now we're going to jump into some fears and expectations. We talked a little bit about this before. You may hear some of the things that we brought up in these examples. And that's my favorite thing is when answers and questions and comments and concerns that we've brought up in the past end up coming into the literature. So you're going to see a lot of that right here. Making amends isn't always a nerve-wracking, joyless experience. Often we will feel excited about the prospect of healing a relationship. That's me. I'm always excited about making the amends and the opportunity. We may find that we're happily anticipating the relief of having made an amends. For most of us, however, we will feel fearful about at least some of our amends. We may be afraid that if we make financial amends, there we go. That's one that I didn't want to make. We may be afraid that if we make financial amends, we won't have enough for ourselves. We may be afraid of rejection, retaliation, or something else. So back in the day, I went on my first time ever snowmobiling. I went with a couple friends of mine. We all went over a lake because this kid had to make it home for a drug test or something like that. And it was like 8 p.m. at night in the middle of January. We ended up falling through the ice. I don't know if anybody has ever been falling through a frozen lake in New Hampshire in the middle of January, but I got hypothermia. We almost died. And I got sued by my friend's dad who owned the snowmobile for the damages done to the snowmobile. I lost in court, regardless of almost fucking dying. This fucking guy sues me, right? And I lose. Long story short, I avoided paying this debt forever, dude. Like, I refuse to pay this guy back. Like, fuck him, bro. Who the fuck does he think? Go get the money from other people, bro. How come you hounded me? Go get the money from the other dude, that chick. Where's the money from your fucking son? You know what I mean? How about they fucking pay you back? Then I end up getting in recovery. And this guy won't leave me alone. He used to show up to my parents' house and knock on the door and be like, hey, where's your son? He owes me money and shit like that. Fuck this guy, right? So anyways, I said to myself, if I pay this guy back, I never have to see him again. And that was like a major change in my life. Like, if I pay these debts, I never have to worry about them again. Like, and I'm afraid of paying them back because I won't have enough to buy cigarettes. You know what I mean? I won't have enough money to buy my vape products or my Uber Eats or whatever the case may be. And it's like, yo, if I could just sacrifice those things so that this fucking guy never calls me again, so that the goddamn debt collectors aren't hounding me, so people aren't fucking chasing me down. I mean, that's more worth it, I think. I think it's more worth paying those things off so it's not such a nuisance and embarrassing and ruining my fucking credit score than the comfortability of the luxuries that I obviously can't fucking afford. Do you know cigarettes is a luxury? You know, you're not entitled to smoke a cigarette, dude. You know, a lot of people think that like just because I'm addicted to cigarettes means I should have cigarettes. It's like, dude, what? No, dude. Buy your own fucking cigarettes. You know? How come I got to be responsible with my fucking finances and you're so entitled that you don't have to fucking, you know, manage your money to buy cigarettes? Well, I don't have a job. Well, fucking, I don't know what to say, dude. That's why cigarettes is a luxury, right? That some people can't afford. And you know what? Asking people repeatedly for cigarettes causes harm. Did you know that? You know, people start being like, fuck this person. That's just the fucking truth. People are like, fuck this guy always asking for cigarettes, dude. This rehab doesn't give out packs of cigarettes. I'm going to go to a different rehab. That's bullshit. My insurance is paying for this place. You know that? You know what do you think people go into dentist's office and say, where's my free toothbrush? What the fuck? How come you didn't give me toothbrush and dental floss? My insurance is paying for this. You know that?
Last thing I was at, they gave away free cigarettes.
Yeah, that's a luxury.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the point that I'm making.
Yeah, all they did was give you fucking hooked on cigarettes again.
Right.
Quit smoking cigarettes.
Right. Like, and that's the distortion of morals that when over a period of time, if you over a period of time start recognizing these things, then those moments are what kind of change people. You know, like if someone's taking an inventory and they're saying, why am I fucking broke all the time? Why am I always relapsing? Right. And maybe they take an inventory and they see that like their motives, like where they are steering their efforts and energy is deviating them from their recovery process. And in order to make those changes, somebody needs to make minor changes. like those are small things they need to do. And typically it's like in the moment of decision making, going back to something like your mother-in-law, like that's an in the moment decision that has to be made for someone to develop the change required to fulfill personal responsibility, because through our inability to accept personal responsibility, we're creating our own problem. So if I think it's somebody else's responsibility to, get me sober, then I'm never going to do the things to get me sober. Like if it's the treatment center's responsibility to keep me sober, then I don't need to do any work. The treatment center is what has to do the work. And that's a misunderstanding of how that's a shit plan to make amends to ourselves, is what I'm saying, Okay. If we've never had any experience with this step before, we're really venturing into the unknown. We're not sure how we're going to feel immediately before the amends, during the amends, and after the amends. We may feel wildly overconfident at one moment and then the next feel totally unable to go on. This is a time when it's very important to understand that the way things feel is not necessarily the way things are. Just because we feel afraid doesn't mean there's truly something to fear. On the other hand, feeling excited and happy won't necessarily reflect the reality of making our amends. It's best to let go of all our expectations about how our amends will be received. We talked about some of the fears, what fears we have about making amends. I think we let's go back to see what we put on this board. Some of the fears we had. I don't think I wrote them down. Oh, there we go, right there. They won't, this thing's in the way. They won't go a specific way. We're afraid we'll freeze up. We get caught off guard. Maybe we don't want to make the amends to these people. Maybe they don't even care about us making the amends. Maybe there's more work required in making the amend when we actually make it. Are you worried that someone will take revenge or reject you? And what about financial amends? Do you have faith that the God of your understanding will ensure that you have what you need, even though you're sacrificing to make amends? Like, do you trust that your higher power will give you what you need in the process of making this amends? Like maybe if you start paying back your debt, God will give you the ability to take overtime. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. Like some people don't see overtime as something God sent, Maybe we start seeing like not having money as a blessing, because I'm spending my money in areas that are repairing my credit or something like that. You know what I mean? Not having money because we spent our money on dumb things is one thing, but not having your money because you're working really hard to like get yourself out of debt is a different thing, you know? Now, we never want to put ourselves in a position where we can't maintain other responsibilities. And that's where it's like a trial and error. Like part of me, I used to want to pay debt, like pay everything, bam, 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 bam. And then I like have no money for food or anything else. And that's a process of me learning that there's a way to go about making this amends where I'm not actually harming myself either. Like I can do this in a productive manner. No matter how long we've been clean or how many times we've been through the steps, we're bound to have some fears and expectations as we begin a new step. This may be especially true if we have previous experience with a step. The 9th step in particular is likely to produce some ambivalence. For instance, many of us find ourselves thinking about our past experiences with making amends at this point. Some have probably been pretty positive. If we made amends to a loved one who was open to our gesture of consolation, we probably came away with a wonderful feeling of hope and gratitude. We were hopeful that the relationship would keep on getting better, and we were grateful to be forgiven and have our amends accepted. Believe it or not, such amends may work against us in later amends. We were just talking about this. We were talking about it. How crazy it comes up in the literature. Don't you guys think that's fucking insane? That's fucking crazy, right? I don't know. I think that's fucking crazy. We were just talking about that. Some of these may work against us in later amends. They can set us up to believe that all our amends should turn out well and then be crushed when they don't. Or we may recognize that such amends aren't going to be the norm and dread to the point of delay making amends whose outcomes we aren't sure will be so good. Hold on, I gotta read that again. What the fuck did that even say? Or we may recognize that such amends aren't going to be the norm and dread to the point of delay making amends whose outcomes we aren't sure will be so good. So we delay these amends. If we find ourselves hung up on projecting how our amends will turn out, we need to refocus the purpose of the 9th step. It is meant to give a way to set right the damage we caused in the past. Some of us keep in mind 3 primary concepts are associated with making amends. If you're taking notes, write these down. Resolution, restoration, restitution. Resolution, restoration, restitution. Resolution implies that we find an answer to the problem. We must lay to rest what was previously plaguing or disturbing us in some way. Restoration means to bring back to its former state something that has been damaged. This can be a relationship or a quality that used to exist in a relationship, such as trust, honesty, love, communication. We can perhaps restore our reputations if they were good at some point in the past. Restitution is very similar to restoration, but in relating to the 9th step, we can think of it as the act of returning something material or more abstract to its rightful owner. Our sponsor can help us explore each of these concepts so that we can gain a perspective on the nature of making amends and stay focused on what we're supposed to be doing. It's only through the process that we realize many of the benefits associated with this. The ones that we may be aware of first are a sense of freedom or an absence of guilt and shame. It may take some time in recovery or experience with several amends for us to appreciate some of the spiritual rewards of the 9th step. A more consistent awareness of the feelings of others and the effect of our behavior on others, a sense of joy that we were able to heal a long-standing hurt, an ability to be more loving and accepting of people around us. We talked about the fears. Why doesn't it matter why your amends is received? That's a great question. Why does it not matter how the other person receives your amends?
Something like when I was in the healing place, there was that like you're hanging up your side of the street, if you're making it right, even if they don't accept it, you right.
Okay, gotcha. Cleaning up your side of the street. I like it. Anybody else? Why is it not important how your amends are received?
Because you made the attempt.
You may be what?
You made the attempt, you put that foot forward, and if it's not reciprocated,
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least you can have a clean conscience. It's about cleaning your conscience. It's not about worrying about how they feel. It's about cleaning house on your side.
Right. It's like
That's more elaborated.
it's like I am doing my job. Like I caused you harm and that was wrong. I'm only here to, apologize for that harm. Like if they don't accept it, I mean, we're doing something for them. You know what I mean? It's like I'm trying to restore this relationship. If there's something else I can do, I want to do it for you. I want to fix it, and if they don't want it, then okay, I tried. Like I can't force it. We're powerless over the other person anyways, so if they don't want the amends, okay, that's okay, sorry, you know what I mean? I will stay out of your life, no problem. Maybe you haven't even been in my life, Okay. Great job. All right, well, let's get into direct and indirect amends. So this is where a lot of your questions that people had about how to make amends is going to be answered, because this is where we're going to discuss the difference between, do I have to do this face to face? Is this something that I can just continue to stay sober and not do, sloppy steaks and stuff like that? Or can I just how am I going to go about doing this? So talking about direct and indirect amends. We tend to think it's best to make direct face-to-face amends. And indeed, this step says that we should do so wherever possible. But direct amends are not the only way to make amends. In some cases, they may be the worst way. Before we provide some examples, it's very important to note that these are only examples. This guide is not meant to take the place of a sponsor in going over each amend with a sponsee and working together to decide what's best. Some situations are more complicated than they appear at first glance. We may think the solution is obvious, but we should always take the time for further reflection. For example, there may be a situation where the person or people we harmed are not aware of what we did, and learning what we did might possibly harm them more. We may have friends, relatives, or an employer who's unaware of our addiction. To tell them might harm them. Our sponsor will help us look at the motives for wanting to tell people about our addiction. Do they know? What good purpose will be served by sharing such information? What damage could such information do? But if the same situation was complicated by our theft of some money from our friends, and what if someone else was accused of taking the money? Wouldn't we then need to tell about our addiction along with admitting the theft and paying the money back? possibly, but not perhaps not. Each of these kind of situations should be taken on an individual basis. So there's no cookie cutter way to make these amends. And each way we go about making amends may be different from person to person, relationship to relationship. Again, our sponsor will help us decide how best to handle each one. In our discussion with our sponsor, if we're open-minded, we're sure to think about the best kind of situations in ways we haven't thought about them before. About these kind of situations in ways we haven't thought about them before. We may see how what we first thought was an obvious method of making amends may not be right after all. It's very helpful to prepare for this discussion by listing the circumstances for these different amends so that it will be right in front of us when we talk to our sponsor. Are there any amends that you think are going to be complicated, that you're nervous about making, like that mother-in-law, maybe a complicated one? Are there any other amends that you that might be a little bit complicated that you're nervous about or worried about?
I've got one of my brothers that I'm upset at resentments because he won't even let me attempt. She's good. So I guess my resentment is I was always the one there for him when he's going through all his shit. And he went through a lot of shit. And he always, even though he's 4 years older than me, he always looked up to me. Because I always had my shit together. I always found a solution to get through things. And then when I went through some bad, my divorce, when I really started drinking, he just started, pushed me aside like I was embarrassing. And his last words to me was I was dead in the pain of just embarrassment. That was 2 years ago. I thought, wow, he's just doing a piece of it. Well, 2 years later, he's out trying to do a piece of it. So I have a lot of resentment towards him for leaving me when I've been at my lowest point in my life. And when I needed him to step up for me, he's kind of, and I get the disappointment that I let him down. He always looked at me as being like a rock that I couldn't, I could falter, I couldn't crumble. I had a solution to anything the family was going through. I always gave through either financially or, just support any which way. And then it just seems like now, and he's my best friend. That made my wedding, and then, when we were kids, we go up behind the barn and duke it out. But now he just cut me off. I much rather, let's go out there and give each other an ass whooping right now than just totally cut me off like this. So I guess that's my biggest amends I want to make, besides my kids, is my brother, and he has nothing to do with it. Exact words where I was dead to him and
So that's complicated because you want to make the amends, but there's just no way to right now.
And I've heard people say I made the attempt, so just basically fuck them. I made the attempt. I can't do that with him. He's he means too much to me. And I'm just I just sit back and wait. I've made multiple attempts to reach out to him, but I get nothing. But he'll make damn sure that he follows my court case and police record and tell the whole family what I got arrested for this week or how I fucked up this week or whatever. He won't talk to me one-on-one, So that just adds to the thing of it's you don't care enough to talk to me, but you damn sure make sure everybody knows my business, what kind of trouble I'm into when we compete.
Yeah, that is a complicated situation. And I'm glad that you are able to recognize that that's one that you should make. You know what I mean? It is complicated. I think that, just for today, you're doing everything you can to restore it. You're talking about it. You're fixing yourself. You know what I mean? You're doing everything you can. And I think that the more you continue to do this day after day, one day he will reach out to you, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but I truly believe he will come around, man. I truly do, and his healing process is his healing process. As much as we want him to forgive us during our healing process, we need to forgive him during his healing process. I can't force someone's cut to heal any faster than their body is going to heal it. The same thing with, any kind of damage or harm we caused in the past. Like, it's going to recover at its own rate. Now, there are definitely things we could do to make a wound heal faster, which is by not picking the fucking scab. You know what I mean? Let the scab heal, let it do its thing. There's no need to pick it off by trying to make an amends when he's not even ready to hear it. And there's also no sense in picking it off by relapsing and, going back to where we were before that caused him to act the way that he's acting. So it's one of those patient things. And, dude, who knows how long it's going to come around, but hopefully God allows that relationship to be restored. You know what I mean? And sooner than later. And by you just continuing to do the daily work, when that opportunity comes, it's going to be on a foundation of you being a changed person. And hopefully when that relationship is mended, you're able to say, hey, man, thanks for reaching out. You know what I mean? I'm glad we're having this relationship. Like, thanks for, I don't know. I hope you can forgive me. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? I don't know if you can, but I want to make it up to you. If there's anything I can do, I just want my brother back. Holidays aren't the same and stuff like that. And you just start to understand your addiction a little bit differently, man. And hopefully they can see that change in you. You know what I mean? Hopefully that change is not only apparent because of how you present yourself, but if he's communicating with your family and you're doing well, hopefully your family is communicating that you're doing well. You see what I'm saying? Because just as much as negativity spreads, positivity spreads too. So if you're doing the right thing, word will get around to him and you won't even know it. And hopefully it's a good word, the same way that when we go through shit, our family gets wind of that and we don't even fucking know it, So, but yeah, man, definitely one of those ones that you want to make, dude. I value family. So thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Any complicated amends that we're looking at? All righty. A problem that presents difficulty for us is that we owe amends that will likely result in losing a job or going to jail or some serious consequence. For instance, if we turn ourselves in for a crime we committed, we may indeed go to jail. So what effect does that have on our lives? Would we lose our job? Would that compromise anyone's security besides our own, like our family? Like, if I say this and I lose my job, then how am I going to feed my family? So on and so forth. On the other hand, if we're a fugitive from justice, what effect might a sudden arrest have on our lives and our families? It's probably best. So this is one of those rare times where they say, go get a lawyer. It's probably best to, in such situations, to seek legal counsel and explore our options. No matter what, we need to somehow accept the consequences of our behavior. But we should bear in mind that our families might very well be represented in the part of this step that says, except when to do so would injure them or others. We all will have to evaluate these situations very carefully with our sponsor's guidance. We'll explore. Are there any amends that might have serious consequences if I made them? Anybody got one of those where you might lose your job or something like that, get arrested?
Yeah, which I'm really worried about right now. Lots of my in-laws, it's pretty bad. We paid for the Airbnb that's under my mother-in-law's name to get me out. And I found out that she had my car towed with all of mine and my mother's belongings in it. So I I'm not talking like, with water everywhere. I completely destroyed this Airbnb. Like, I broke all the mirrors. I put the coffee pot thing in the microwave so it caught on fire, and I smashed the microwave. I took a knife to the couches. Natalie, and then like the next morning I was upset. Was really bad.
Are you has anything come of that?
No, and I like my husband. Like, I feel like they would say something, but like it's a lot of damage. So I don't know how. I have no idea how nothing's come from it. I don't know if they're like waiting, because technically my husband and I are on a no contact order. So that's probably why they are gonna know. But that, I mean, that easily $10,000 of damage.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah.
Great example. Yeah, maybe kind of let that one just kind of slide under the radar. But one of the I always view those type of amends where if it ever comes up, that's when we're willing to make that amends. You know what I mean? If at some time it ever comes up and it's like, hey, you still owe me 10 grand for that Airbnb. You know what I mean? You gotta own it. Yeah, I had a feeling.
I keep thinking, I'm like, maybe since it wasn't under her Airbnb, it's the Airbnb account, but it had like a ring camera, which you could only see me.
Wow,
But
great.
I'm just waiting for call for someone to they know my address where I'm living now. Come to my door. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? An amends that might have serious consequences?
Yeah. So I locked the clown in the trunk of my car and drove around drunk for 2.5 hours, then lost the car. And then the clown broke out of my car, got the keys, and came back to my house and gave me the keys back. And when he said, "That was the best night of my life, Mr. Coomer," I found out he was my 16-year-old student that and now he's serving life in prison because he killed his brother in a drug deal with combat. I was a special ed teacher too.
Okay. So I'm sorry, kind of like cut out a little bit. So you ended up driving around with a student?
No. I locked. The student was dressed up as a clown. I was out with a bunch of people. The student said, "Man, there's more room in the trunk of your car." And I said, "Get in the fucking trunk." We shut him in there. He was on drugs. He passed out. We went bar hopping. I lost the car. I woke up in my apartment the next morning. It was around Halloween, but we were all dressed up as clowns because we were juggalos.
Oh my God.
And 2 days later, the kid shows up at my door, and that's when I found out that the guy that I locked in the trunk of my car was one of my 16-year-old high school students.
Oh. And nothing ever came of it.
No, because he was raised in the streets. I taught emotional behavior disorders, and in the area that I was teaching, snitches get stitches. So no, he never said shit. But he is in jail for life now because he killed his brother.
Wow. How long? Thank you for sharing. How long after that happened did you have any anxiety after that happened for like a period of time? Were you like, fuck, dude, I'm getting arrested at some
did
point?
Not know it was crazy until I was sober for a year and a half, and I was giving a lead, and I just mentioned it, like I locked the clown in the trunk of my car and lost it, and then I went on with the rest of my lead, and then everybody came up to me and was like, "What? You did what?" And then when I fleshed it out, I like realized how crazy and stupid what I did actually was.
Great example. Yes. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else got an example like that?
I'd also like to say that the statute of limitations is passed on that. I checked with a lawyer.
Wow. Yeah, definitely lawyer up. I one time in active addiction stole field trip money from I used to be a school teacher, substitute teacher. One day I stole field trip money, and that was a whole shindig in itself. And there's serious consequences if I were to admit that. Then a lot of stealing and check fraud and so yeah.
I would walk around with Sprite Zero when I ran out of my flask at school and pump hand sanitizer into my Sprite Zero so I could stay comfortably drunk through the rest of the day.
Wow.
Yeah, more or less teaching us.
I did not grow up on drinking and those something like that before, but
I don't know. I drank Scope too, and I shit bubbles for a week.
Wow. Was there a reason that you did? Was there a reason you did hand sanitizer and didn't just like bring nips or something like that?
Well, I did bring it, but I would like run out. Like I would think, oh, I'm gonna like drink this much and stay like comfortably drunk so I'm not getting shakes. And then I would always overshoot it and pretty much be blasted by the end of the day. But nobody wanted my job. Nobody wanted my job because I taught severe emotional behavior disorders. Some of them were really smart, but they just every once in a while had to jump across the desk and stab them in the eye with a pencil. So nobody wanted it. And so like people would just basically ignore me and let me do whatever the fuck I wanted.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Excellent. Yeah, dude. That is a crazy story, dude. Thank you for sharing that. I love that story. Wow. I'm so happy you didn't get into trouble for that. Okay. Another circumstance when we wouldn't be able to make direct amends, although not because of the possibility for further injury, would be when a person we owe amends is dead. This is very common, so much that our members have developed a variety of creative ways of dealing with such situations. Our members have even managed to make sure that amends of this nature do more than discharge our own sense of shame. Some have made financial donations in the name of a person to whom we owe amends. Some may have taken on a task that was something that person cared about. Some may have made restitutions to their children who may have their own spot on their 8-step list. The ways we might deal with such situations are only limited by our imagination and level of willingness. We might be surprised at how effective an indirect amends can be in such situations like this. Many of us strive to make the amends as directly as possible by visiting a person's grave or another meaningful place and perhaps reading a letter or simply speaking to the person's memory or spirit. Again, our response to these situations will be determined by the nature of harm we inflicted, our spiritual beliefs, and of course, our sponsor's guidance. Are there any amends I owe to people who are dead or passed away? Raise your hand if you got one of those. What was special about that person that you could use in your amends? So, what was special about that person that you might be able to use in planning your amends? For those of you who just walked in, we're talking about, do we owe amends to people who are passed away? And what was special about that person that we could use to help plan making this amends? What was special about them?
I knew her since she was 8 or 10, and she went through the healing phase, she went from where I was, and then I started using with her, and she just died last month. And I didn't like use heroin or anything, but I still, someone that she was like a little sister to me. I feel so guilty being part of her using, I building her up about this already, and I'm proud of her.
What do you find was special about them that you could probably use when you're planning your amends?
I'm I don't really understand what, an example.
Did they like dogs? Did they like cats? Do they listen to a certain band? Did they like to cook?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What was special about them?
Mainly she was like a sister to me, and she was so funny, and she likes all the same music as me. There's so many things. She had a lot of favorite places that she would like to go. She was born and raised in the Highlands. I'm not comfortable. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. Maybe visiting those places. Maybe there's a band or a song that you guys used to listen to, and when they're in town, maybe you could go see them. Something like that. You know what I mean? It's these are creative, amazing ways to make amends. You know what I'm saying?
Another, I've known the whole family. It was my first boyfriend, so I don't know if I could bring up that I used with her as an amends, because I feel like that would just hurt them deeply, because they've known me for 20 years.
Yeah, maybe just keep that out. They don't need to know we use together. You know what I mean? I think that you could make an amends, and if you have to, and all that stuff, while just kind of keeping that out of there. I mean, if it comes up, if they ask you, maybe say it. You know what I mean? You got to kind of read the situation, but I don't know about just volunteering it.
Yeah, baking her birthday's coming up, and baking her favorite cake and just taking it to her house.
Dude, that would. If someone did that for my sister, I would be blown away, dude. It wouldn't even be a situation where I'm looking for an amends. I would be so absolutely grateful that someone not only thought of her, went through the effort of making a cake and delivered it to me. I would take that beautiful time to say, come in, eat fucking cake with me, and let's talk about funny memories and laugh and things like that. So I think that would be a beautiful thing if you could do something like that. Even if you were to just make it for yourself. You know what I mean? Like in her honor. Like, that is amazing. Great idea. Great idea. Okay. We've been emphasizing the need to check each and every amends with our sponsor before proceeding. While important, there's no need for us to become mindless robots, afraid to think for ourselves or act without asking our sponsor about it. Many of our members have had the experience of running into a person from our past who we had not put on our 8-step list, but might belong there. Sometimes the amends owed are so clear we would be foolish not to avail ourselves of such a lucky coincidence. Other times we may run into a person and experience very uncomfortable feelings but not know what's causing them. If this happens, it's better to take the relationship through a 4th and 5th step process in order to gain more clarity about it. In any event, we should never consider our harm list closed. Chances are we'll be adding new names throughout our lives. What about people we can't find? Should we go ahead and make indirect amends to them too? Perhaps, along with many of our members, we have had the experience of running across someone we thought we'd never be able to find, usually in a location we'd never expect to find them. We can certainly draw the conclusion that a higher power is at work when such coincidences happen, but even if not, we certainly shouldn't ignore the opportunity to make direct amends. If we can't find someone on our amends list, we may want to wait. We should continue making every effort to find the person. We should make an effort not to cause the same type of harm to someone else, and we should remain willing. A spirit of willingness can often serve the purpose of the amends when we cannot make the actual amends. After considering the complications involved in making indirect amends, it may seem as though making direct amends is easy, or at least more straightforward. We did something that hurt someone. We need to apologize for the harm. That's it, right? Not often, if ever. As mentioned earlier, the amends process is one that has a distinct beginning and end. Isn't one that has a distinct beginning and end. We often begin making amends in one sense as soon as we get clean. Most of the time, we immediately amend some of our behavior. This part of the amends process, the one in which we changed ourselves, goes on long after we've spoken directly to someone we harmed. Is there a behavior that you find yourself needing to make an amends for? Like, if there was a behavior that everybody got, what would that you would have to amend for? What would that behavior be? What was that one?
Can you give an example? I don't really understand what you mean.
Like, I stole from everyone, bro. Like, stealing is most likely one of those things that I would probably have to make an amends for. Lying.
Yeah, I was about to say, mine would be lying.
Manipulating. You know what I mean? It's like, if I can't think of how I harmed this person, I can probably make an assumption that I fucking lied to them or I manipulated them or something like that, For me, it's like I probably stole from you. I probably borrowed money and never paid you back. You probably gave me drugs or a video game or a DVD, or you gave me $20 to get food and I never brought back the change. You know what I mean? Like, those are just things that I would always do, dude. Like, I remember just be on Xanax. Someone, as soon as they turn around, you just take the money. Like, I would be sitting there, there'd be money and drugs on the table, and I'm just like, as soon as this motherfucker turns around, I'm just taking a handful. And you just don't, Is that something I need to amend? I mean, probably not. But when I can assume that I stole from people. You see what I'm saying? So lying, manipulation, stealing, drinking and driving. Anything else? All right. I want to say everybody's doing fantastic.
Arguments, fights.
Fights, fist fights, arguments, both. Yeah, pretty much. We're almost there. What about those direct amends? The ones when we sit down, acknowledge and accept responsibility for the harm we cause, and accept whatever response we get. These amends that may strike fear in our hearts. We imagine ourselves sitting down before the people on our amends list, humbly and sincerely admitting our wrong, and then just as humbly and sincerely offering to repair the wrong, only to have the person respond, "It can never be repaired. What you did was too awful." Or, "Forget it. I'll never forgive you." In truth, a situation like the above is exactly what we most fear because we're afraid of having our faith in the process destroyed. We've taken an incredible risk by allowing ourselves to believe in a higher power in ourselves, in the possibility of recovery. Our worst nightmare is that the damage can't be repaired, that we're such horrible people, we can't be forgiven. It may comfort us to know that many recovering addicts have received a negative reaction from someone they were making amends to. And not only have they not let it go, get them down, but they received the same spiritual benefit from making the amends as they would have if they had been received with love and forgiveness. Sometimes when our attempts at making amends are received so negatively, we do find that we need to take additional steps so we can feel we've attained some resolution. Our basic tech tells us that contacting someone who's still hurting from the burn of our misdeeds can be dangerous. It can also be unproductive, especially in the case of family members and close friends. Contacting people harmed before they've had the chance to cool off may cause them to respond very angrily to us when after a bit more time, they would have reacted quite differently. If we approach such a person too soon, we may want to wait until some time has passed and try again. Sometimes, however, no matter how well we've prepared or how sincere our amends, the person won't accept our amends. If we encounter this situation, we need to realize that there is a point which our responsibility ends. If someone is determined to nurse a grudge against us for the rest of their lives, it may be best that the best we can do is wish the person well and consider the amends made. If we have difficulty coping with feelings that arise in the wake of such an amends, our sponsor will help us find a way of coming to terms with the amends. Perhaps in certain situations, we may be better off making indirect amends, or it may feel that our amends are more complete if we take some other action that restores or repairs a situation. For instance, we've tried to make amends to a former employee from who we stole money. He or she doesn't want to hear the amend and doesn't want our money. We may find that we can resolve the situation and make restitution by referring customers to the business, or if it's possible, somehow anonymously paying back the money we stole. We need to remember that making amends is a part of our personal recovery program. It's true that we make amends because we owe them, but we also need to recognize the spiritual growth inherent in the process of making amends. We recognize and accept the harm we cause. This shocks us out of our self-obsession, because self-obsession and self-centered fears are the part of our disease that most strongly affect our spirituality. Alleviating and diminishing those parts of our disease will surely cause our recovery to flourish. Second, approaching the person we harmed directly and acknowledging the harm we caused is an enormous step on our own spiritual journey, no matter how the amends are received. The fact that we went ahead with something that required a great deal of humility was proof, in fact, that we had attained some measure of humility. Finally, making our amends, we are left with a sense of freedom. We no longer burdened with the weight of unfinished business, and a sense of shame about the harm we cause is gone. Our spirits soar. Look at this. All right. So as you can see, we still have to talk about the amends and forgiveness. So let's okay. I'm gonna make an executive decision and end class here. Fantastic job, everybody. You should give yourselves a hand, a pat on the fucking back, dude. Yes, thank you. I can't thank you guys enough. When I come back next Friday, we're gonna wrap up amends. We're gonna end with the making amends. We're gonna talk about forgiveness, making amends, and then what we're gonna talk about is the daily amends. So next week we're gonna wrap up 9. Hopefully get through 10 so that 2 weeks from now we can start working on prayer, meditation. Dude, prayer and meditation, that's a 2-part class. So just as the 9th step is a 2-part class, 11th step is a 2-part class. So great job, folks. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you. Great job. And thank you